I hear the wind chimes. Okay, you can hear the wind chimes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. John, why don't you just start off and tell us how you got into the World War II, where you grew up and everything.
Very well. I can also read it, but I can try and remember.
Remember.
But I was at Penn State as a student in chemical engineering, and the war began, and my family was in the Philippines. My father, mother, 2 sisters, and my younger brother. And I was at Penn State in Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, and we were all going to join the Army. But we got convinced by the head of the department that to wait, because we'd be more valuable as engineers. But when I finished the school year, I just decided I was going to go in. But of course I was underage for some reason or another. And I had to get permission from my aunt who lived in New York, which she gave. So I joined the Army, and I wanted to get into the Air Force. But my eyes were very bad, and I could not get in the Air Force because I wanted to be a fighter pilot, just like Snoopy, and fight the Red Baron. But no way. So I went from there to the ridiculous, which is I joined the U.S. Cavalry. And I could go on for hours on little stories on this. Well, anyway, I joined the cavalry, going from the sublime to the ridiculous. And there was horse cavalry. And I was sent down to some staging area in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania border, and sent into the sign in, volunteer, become a member of the military, and the U.S. Cavalry in particular. The bad thing that happened there, I'm going into lots of details here, is that I'd been in the Boy Scouts in the Philippines, and I was marching, and our scout master was a master sergeant of some sort. So I knew all the Army drills and this and that. And I reported into this captain as a brand new recruit, and stood up sharply and at attention and saluted sharply, and Private McCreary reporting for duty, sir. And the guy opened up his eyes and said, what the hell is this? And so I was given a stack of records about this high, about maybe 50 people, and that was my first command, 50 people, and I was put on a train with these 50 guys, mostly tough coal miners from Pennsylvania, and to take them on this train, 2 railroad car fulls, to Fort Riley, Kansas, which was the cavalry center. Of course, I was scared to death. I have these bunch of papers, and these guys are there. And what happened, we got to St. Louis, and the train was held up, high priorities, and they wouldn't be able to move out until next day. And so that was my first command decision. What do? I can't keep these guys here all day. I'm going to have to let them go. So I called them all in. I'm, 17 years old? And they talked to these guys. I said, I'm going to let you be free for a while, but you got to get back here by 6 o'clock. You be here by 6 o'clock, no matter what happens. And so they all took off cheering, and there I was all by myself with this batch of papers, and just worrying, are they going to come back? Are they going to come back? I'll be court-martialed if I lose them. So anyway, they all came back, and we got on our train, went to Fort Riley, Kansas. And again, we boarded into the Cavalry Training Center, and that was it. I got very good basic training. We got experience in everything from this .45 pistol and the cannons, machine guns, bayonets, knives. I mean, they gave us a thorough basic training. And we were all guys from all over the country, and some long, short, tall, fat, thin. and from all over. Well, anyway, again, I reported in and saluted, so I was made an acting corporal. And some people resented that very much. Because there I was the youngest guy there, and here I am being made an acting corporal. And there was some Syrian guy, and he didn't like that at all, and was really beating on me and picking on me, and that's where well, finally I couldn't take it anymore. I said, well, I guess we got to have a fight. And hey, and everybody, the crowd gathered around and says, fight, 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 fight. And everybody's forming me a circle. And I said, well, we're going to use gloves. And so standard, somebody brings out gloves. I'd been there maybe a few days. And so this guy's bigger than I am and all that. But there's one thing he didn't know that I knew. During my freshman and sophomore year, I'd done a lot of boxing at Penn State, and I was really very good at it. And the only thing I'd learned my sophomore year is when you get in trouble, if you attack the guy first as hard as you can, the chances are you'll win. And so I sort of jumped out of the ring, and I was really all over him. He didn't stand a chance. And so after a couple of knockdowns, I said, is that enough? And he says, yeah, I got enough. And so we became friends, and that was it. But I never had any trouble after that. And that was the introduction. And then I was put on horses. I'm stretching. If I'm going too far,
No, this is all these details are most interesting.
I was put in horses, and my first job was stable duty. And I was put in there, given a .45 pistol there, and I don't know if it had ammunition or not. Probably did, but and I hadn't been trained in any of that, though I did know about it. And there I am in this stable in the middle of the night with all these noises coming in and out from these horses, and my job is to stay in the stables and checking on these horses, and there I was wandering around. And then the Brigadier General, this has happened to a lot of people, I think it was a brigadier, maybe a colonel, was doing an inspection tour of the stable, and he didn't know the password, and I wouldn't let him in. I had him hot and called a couple of the guard and all this, and finally it turned out to be some brigadier that was sort of checking in, and I was, oh my God, I'm going to get court-martialed again. But the guy said, well, good job, soldier, and left. So that was sort of my introduction. And of course, to make a long story short, a lot of us from basic training, very good basic training, then we finished that and went to a small unit training, which is working with squads and platoons and all kinds of weapons. And we had very good sergeants. They were all veterans of many years of Army service, and they were very good. They just knew their business. They knew their weapons, and they were experts. And so then from there I went to OCS and became a commissioned officer in the cavalry. And the nicest thing about it is the reason to go to the cavalry is because they had such a snazzy uniform with these boots and spurs and breeches and all kinds of things. And we thought we were the cat's meow with all that stuff on. So we graduated after, what was it, 90 days of training. We became so I guess probably a sergeant then, and became a second lieutenant, and ordered new uniforms, and went on duty. And people were sent all over the place, but I, for some mistaken reason, got sent back to the very same unit where I had taken basic training. And my platoon sergeant was the Indian fellow named Stoppel, who had been my boss, training me, taught me everything I knew about the Army. For that I learned at Fort Riley. And that was a problem. I said, uh-oh, and it's something that should not be done. You don't send him back to the place where he'd been a private. But there I was, a new officer sent back to where I'd been a private. But very fortunately, this guy that was Sergeant Stoppel was very proud of me, because he said, one of my boys. So we got along very well. I was with a reconnaissance unit. A reconnaissance unit, we had about 3 armored cars, 3 jeeps, and a and a scout car that we carried a mortar in. Maybe about, 30 people. And we went through and the beach, and suddenly we were on our own and going through France, headed roughly toward Paris. Went through places like Avalanche and the cathedral, what's the famous cathedral outside of Paris? Rheims? Yes. Chartres Cathedral. Went right through there, already had a hole in somewhere. And we ran into Germans every once in a while, but they were mostly running the other way. And it was, that was probably what? Well, after the breakout. And there were rather many things going on. It was always happening very quickly. And we'd go left, we'd go right, north. We were being sent all over the place, wherever they thought there might be a problem, and mainly to get information. And we were in Third Army. Patton's, was Patton there? Yes, that was Patton's army, going across France and Germany. And we got almost to Paris, and we were stopped, our regiment, and we were stopped to let the Free French go through, which was all right with us. And so General de Gaulle and his people, we waited on the side of the road, and they went through us so they could go to Paris, and we went south, Fontainebleau and around Paris and out the other side, and found a lot of dead German bodies there. I still remember one that we almost ran over, handsome young fellow with long blonde hair, and was there. And anyway, and we headed toward Germany. I'm shortening this a lot. But on the way, we happened to find in Epernay, and then again later in another town, Troyes, we found wineries and booze dumps. Some of them belonged to the Germans, and some of them we just sort of went in. So, all these GIs, and there were no water cans with water. Suddenly all the water cans were filled with wine or cognac or stuff like that. And on our way we went, loaded up, and it was very hard to find a good drink of pure water. And most of us had something like that loaded in there. And people's canteens were filled up. But anyway, it was quite a find. And our regimental commander was in on this in many ways, because our supply trucks were sent in there and loaded up and shipped back to Fontainebleau, where we had, and 2 people spent the rest of the war on guard there, guarding this trove of, and every once in a while the regiment would send a truck back and bring back some wine, mostly for the officers, I guess. So that was kind of interesting. And there were many odds and ends that happened there. Like one of them was, we had a farmer's cow, and it bounced up in the air from our armored front slope and on the ground, dead. And of course the French farmer comes out and fussing, and we killed his cow, which we had. Well, anyway, the upshot of it all is we paid him for this cow enough to satisfy him, and we had one guy that was a very good cook, and loaded this animal, bled it, and loaded it on the top of one of these vehicles, and we took it with us and made dinner that night. It was very good, because with all this running around we were doing, weeks and weeks of it, all we were eating was sea rations, unless we caught a chicken, or like this cow that was very good.
Explain to Zach what sea rations are. Explain to Zach what sea rations are. What are sea rations?
What was that?
Tell him what sea rations are.
Oh, sea rations they were little cans about this big, like tuna fish cans. And they had with all kinds of nice things in them, and some that were not so nice. tomatoes, sauce, and hot dogs chopped up was one of the ones that was considered good. And ham and lima beans was considered good. And then they had a lot of others that looked like cat food and tasted like cat food that were not as good. But by and large, they were not bad. The later something like called K rations, I don't know, but we had mostly these C rations, canned stuff. And it came in a little box, and when it were cigarettes, I didn't smoke, so I traded that, and chocolate bars, and toilet paper, and that was it. And everybody got a bunch of those. Another interesting thing going through France, we stopped in the woods one time at night. My little platoon, not many people, a few vehicles, and the armored cars. And the armored car, this car was a very six-wheel thing with a very small 37 millimeter cannon on it, and which wouldn't penetrate anything. And in the middle of the night, we went into this place there, and in the morning we were looking around, and they were all German tanks, big, heavy German tanks, Mark IVs or something like that. And we were right there, sort of right with them. And well, anyway, we very quietly got ourselves together, and we had radios, and we signaled go. And it was like a covey of quail leaving this place. And that was a very scary moment. And we just got out of there as fast as we could and reported these tanks. We had very good radios to higher headquarters, and then went on our way. And eventually we got to a place called Thionville, near the German-French border, and we ran out of gas, essentially. And Third Army stopped, and we just stayed there running patrols. And the other one we had here is another interesting story. Which you read many times, World War I, World War II, and that is the wine cellar. And we were in this wine cellar down there, and that was sort of our command post and we'd run patrols from there at night. And that was going on, that was probably September probably of 44. No. Yeah, okay, September, and we were in this wine cellar, and there we are, with all this wine. And sometimes the Germans would take over this place, at least once, and then we'd leave, the Germans would take it over, then we'd go in, and they'd take it over, and so we sort of took turns a couple of times in being in the cellar, I'm sure, but nobody left any messages, but nobody broke any bottles, which I thought was rather interesting. And evidently, you'll hear that story many times. It only happened to me once. Another interesting thing that happened there, this is war story now. I was leading one of these patrols, and we thought we heard some Germans there, and I went to this house, and I wanted to, well, we dropped this grenade on the door, and then what? So I had this grenade, and I was fixing to throw it through the door, and somebody told us, no, there's nobody there today. And so I wanted to put the grenade pin back into the grenade so it'd be safe, and then you could let go of the handle. But in the meantime, I dropped this pin, and I didn't have anything. What do I do now? I'm with this live grenade in my hand, but if I let it go, it's going to explode. In the meantime, I can't lock it up again. And finally, so well, to hell with this, and sort of, I'm going to release it, and I sort of quickly threw it in there, and you have 5 seconds, and then it goes bang. Of course, there was nobody there, which by then we knew. But it's one of those things. There I was holding this thing. What do I do now? Well, eventually we reached see, when was the Battle of the Bulge? I was doing reconnaissance work and telephone work. One time, well, you can cut that as however you want. One of them was I was doing lineman work on telephone lines with the regiment, and I was up on this telephone with these climbers that telephone linemen get, and climbing up this pole, and we were using regular wires. We'd hook them up to our telephones, and you could use the wires that were existing. It'd save you laying wire and all that stuff. So I'm up on this pole about, what, 30 feet in the air, or whatever they were, 20 anyway. And all of a sudden I hear this whistlings and bangs. And I finally realized it was an 88 millimeter cannon, best gun the Germans had, better than anything we had at that time. And they were taking pot shots at it. What a waste of ammunition, sitting on this telephone pole. And when I realized what was happening, didn't take too long. You never saw a guy come down a post faster. I think I went 30 feet and with one check in the middle, and that was it. And then I was on the bottom, and where the other guys were all sort of flying down, looking around. So that was kind of exciting. And that was probably around the same area, the Moselle area. And then I went to C Company, where the commander was somebody from around here. And incidentally, my battalion commander at that time, or one of my battalion commanders, was Marshal Wallach. You may have known him here in Warrenton. And he died maybe earlier, just months ago, I believe. And he was a great commander. And my company commander was another Virginian who later became a senator or congressman, whose name escapes me right now. But they were very, very good, and they were very nice to me, and except for sending me on patrol a lot. Anyway, well, to cut back to this chase, oh yeah, before that, one time at night, going on a radio relay patrol, again communications, with this armored car, and not the one without a cannon, but an open top, and all kinds of radios. And it was a fairly bright night, and we were driving pretty fast on this good French road, and I'm in there sort of trying to look at a map with red lights, and all of a sudden I noticed something strange. We were flying through the air. There's nothing under us. Of course, we don't know what's happening because it happened so fast. But then we had this horrible crash, and then bounce, and another crash, and then black. And we were about 4 guys in this car, and we were all knocked out. And we'd gone across the abutments of a blown-up bridge, bounced on them, and landed on the other side of the little river. And we're lucky we weren't killed. In fact, nobody was badly hurt. But anyway, when we wake up, there's this old Frenchman and the pretty French girl. It's like a story. You look up and there's this pretty French girl, the farmer's daughter. And so I could speak a little French, but not much. And of course, our car was sort of on its side, and we were all then unable to get up and sort of walk around and look, and a little achy, but okay. And our radio, I don't know how somehow we got information back to the place, to their headquarters, and they sent something out there and righted the car, and then we were sent back, and somehow the car, I don't know if we used the car again or not. It may have been running, I'm not sure. But anyway, that was the interesting thing, and there's this Bonjour, Mademoiselle. Nice story. And then we were on the Moselle River, and gasoline had arrived, and Patton at that time was back there, and what happened then, I was sent on a message to way north to the next army up there near Bastogne and those places, and where the Bulge was about to take place. In the meantime, we were down south with 20th Corps, part of 3rd Army, and we were expecting the Germans to attack. Everybody was wanting, the intelligence people were sending us out trying to find the German tanks. And the big question, I still remember it, was we've got to find the 6th Panzer Army. And Panzers, you know, the German call their tank corps. And the 6th Panzer Army was tough guys, and we didn't know where they were, and we were trying to find them and couldn't. And that was part of the reason I was sent north, to see if I could get any information from up there and bring it back. And so I sailed up north and looked to whatever I was supposed to do, which I don't remember. But on the way back, I heard all this shooting going on, and like a real war. And when I got back to my unit, everything was in uproar. Everybody was all excited, and because I'd come right through the place where the battle, the Bulge was sort of taking place, and I missed it all. I heard the noise and went all the way through with my Jeep, and they were like, well, what's going on? I was like, well, there was some shooting on artillery, but I don't know, I didn't see anything. And in the meantime, the Battle of the Bulge is occurring, and we were being pushed back miles, and Patton had been ordered to get his troops in, and eventually they took care of that. And then after that, a little episode of sitting there, and of course we're getting a lot of artillery, but that's about all. I was sent on patrol, and this is a different story. Do you want me to go into that? Okay, so I was sent on patrol. I was always volunteering for things like that because I thought it was my job. And we had to go across the Moselle River at let's see, what was the town? Well, some there near Thionville, but we had blackened our faces and made flashlight signals, and we were put on a small boat by some engineer guys and taken across the river and dumped on the other side. Of course, we had our faces all blackened and caps on and nothing that made noise. And we were fairly well armed with each one of us had a pistol, and I had a rifle, and my sidekick there, the only guy that was with me, had a submachine gun, the old Thompson submachine gun, the Chicago typewriter. So we went across the river, and we were quiet for a long time, heard some Germans talking, and then finally we moved out on hands and knees, because that was the front line. And there were German pillboxes. It was the Siegfried line right there on the other side of that Moselle River. And we were on our hands and knees, and that's the first one. Evidently some German soldier had used this place for his latrine, and I put my hand on this railroad track, and I went into this big pile of feces, and I was rubbing it off, and of course the other guy almost starts to laugh. We cleaned that off, and then quietly went past the railroad tracks, and then up hills, past pillboxes, and we could see pretty well. At that time I could hear very well and see well enough. And this guy, Ernst, well anyway, my psychic, whose name escapes me right now, he could, with marvelous sight, and I remember I'm walking ahead of him one time through here very quietly, slowly, and suddenly I feel this hand grabbing my hair and pushing down, and he says, and he whispers that somebody's coming. Sure enough, all lying down on the grass to the side, and there comes this German patrol going by, or messengers, I don't know what they were. So we keep on going, and it starts, and we probably went several miles, and behind the enemy lines there, and at finally dawn is coming up, and we decide, well, we better not too much activity around here. We better settle in. So we settled in some bushes, and by the side of a road. And I should mention that with us, what we had with us was a cage with 2 pigeons and some paper so we could write messages and send the pigeons back. And of course, we were there with this cage with 2 pigeons in this bush, and the German platoon, about what, 30 guys, was marching up the road singing "Around Pont Rome" or something like that. And so we're there and hiding in this bush as these guys with machine guns and rifles are marching by. And this time the pigeons decided to go coo, coo. And so my guy's there, he's got a pigeon around the neck with each hand, and "Shall I kill him, Lieutenant? Shall I kill him?" And I'm saying, no, we need him. I said, no, don't kill him. And eventually these guys went by, and they released the pigeons and sore necks, I'm sure. And we moved a little bit more, and so we could see down to the valley. One of the things we'd been sent out to check was they'd heard train noises, and they wanted to know about a train that might be over there. We never did see any train. We heard a train once, it seems to me, but never saw it. But we saw a lot of artillery and mortar positions, and we writing it all down and writing a message, and sent our message out by the pigeon. And the message actually arrived, finally, I found out. So then we spent most of the day moving very little, because after running to that patrol we didn't want to do too much, but enough so we could see over one side of the hill to the other, and saw some artillery, infantry going by, trucks that might have gone by. We wrote that all down, but never any train. And then, I don't know, 1 night or 2 nights we did that. Well, anyway, eventually, when we figured our time was up, we started heading back the same way we came. And we got to the hill of the river, overlooking the river, and there was an awful lot of activity. Then it got dusk, and we were ready to go down, but we didn't want the boat to come across too soon. So we sent a signal out that says, what do you call it? Was it AS, I believe, and that was the signal to wait. We finally got past this pillbox, running very slowly, and got to the edge of the river, and let's see what happened then. We wanted a prisoner. We wanted to pick up a prisoner. So we were waiting there to see if somebody goes by and we can jump on this prisoner. And eventually, here comes this guy. And now I'm supposed to jump on him, and just about he gets even with us, and it's a cook, and he's carrying a whole stack of pots and pans. We better not jump on him. So we didn't, and well, anyway, we were back there quiet again, and then we saw, what's his name, my sergeant there, opened up with his machine gun. He heard somebody coming up, and shall I shoot, and then he shot and sprayed the thing, and that's the jig's up. Everybody knows we're here now. So I said, well, we have to swim across. So he dumped his machine gun and went to swim across, and I did the same thing. I dumped threw my rifle in the river, but I saw his machine gun was still over on the edge, so I went to pick up his machine gun to throw in the water, and I got stuck in barbed wire. I had my clothes on and everything else, so there I couldn't move, and it was cold, it was winter. I eventually wound up with all my clothes off, all my shoes, nothing on but a GI shorts, my glasses, and my wristwatch, and blind as a bat, and cold. So I managed to get away from that wire, tearing everything off and leaving it there, and went up to where those railroad tracks were, and was warming up, doing exercises, push-ups and running up and down, and all of a sudden this guy comes out of this pillbox. My place for PT was the front door of a German pillbox, and this guy comes out there and takes the takes a look at me in there, and I'm jumping up, and just about that time he shoots me and hits me in the arm, and I figured, well, I've had it, so I said, okay, I surrender. So it turns out he's a real old guy, maybe 60 years old, a Volkssturmer, and he was there. The Volkssturmers, you know what those are, the People's Reserve or something. So he, very proud of himself, of course. In the meantime, other German soldiers hear the shot, they come running out, and they all take me down into this, downstairs, into this pillbox. And there's maybe a dozen or two German guys, and they're not too excited about me. The sergeant in charge, I could speak German. I'm from chemistry school, and he looks up and sees this guy and me, and he says, "What kind of a bug have you got there?" in German. and the guy, and one of the guys that had talked to before, he says, "I don't know what kind of a bug he is, but he says he's an American officer." So one guy spoke a little thing, and he asked me a few questions, and I just gave him the name, rank, serial number. And so they locked me off in the corner, put a Band-Aid on my arm, or wrapped it up with a bandage. And I just stood there in the corner. I still remember that room. A table there, and benches, and a few chairs, and equipment all over the place, gas masks and guns and whatnot. And I'm just sitting in this corner, cold as hell, and the guy throws me this blanket, so I have that blanket over me, which helped a lot. And then I finally went to sleep. There's I think probably an officer, maybe a sergeant, and comes with me, and he takes me with I'm by himself, great big guy. And you love this, I've told you this one before. We're out of the pillbox and walking down the road, and he looks down at me and holding me by one arm. I'm really big, 6 foot something. And he looks down at me and says, "This goddamn war, it's all Roosevelt's fault." And so we got there, and then he turned me over to about 10 guys and a lieutenant. And this is the further back I got, the more guards I got. So I'm there, and they form a perimeter around me, a diamond shape, and I'm in the middle, and this lieutenant with a Schmeiser machine gun pointed at me, that's a submachine gun, says, and at that time I was thinking, I wonder if I could jump into that river and get away before anything happens. And I don't know if he's a mind reader or not, but he says, "Don't try to escape. We're ready, and you will shoot you." And he was right. But anyway, we march on down, and then we turned inland again and to a command post where they have a very tired-looking lieutenant colonel or something like that. And he's got this little field desk, and he's behind it, and I walk in, and he spoke a little English, and started to think, and he said, "Well, you don't look so good," or something like that. And he reached into his lower left-hand drawer and pulled out a bottle of booze, cognac, I assume, or some German schnapps, I think, colorless drink. And by then it was daylight, and he pours it into a little bitty glass tumbler and holds it out for me, and of course I think, oh, it's a dirty German trick of some sort, and so I said, "No, thank you." I was being very polite, and he looks at it and he drinks it. I never forgot that. Have I ever told you the story before? No. Well, anyway, so he says, "What?" He says, "Well, okay," and sends me on out, and I'm wait out there, and pretty soon this two guys on a motorcycle come in, and we drive, and I go to this castle somewhere where they have an official interrogator. The good-looking fellow and tall and spoke very good English, intelligent fellow. And he starts asking questions. We're in this big, beautiful castle, and I'm just there with this blanket and dirt all over me, and barefoot. He starts asking questions, and I say, no, rank and serial number, that's all you're supposed to get. You're an officer, you know that. Appeal to their gallantry and all that. So the questions go on, but I don't answer. And finally he looks at my watch and he says, is that your watch or a government watch? Or words to that effect. And I said, no, it's a government watch. And he says, well, in that case, I'm taking it. He takes my watch. And then he hands it back. Well, if you'll tell me what your unit is, I'll give you your watch back. and then finally, but we're getting nowhere. So finally, it's let's see. He's got these pieces of paper and he starts reciting names, and eventually I run into names that I know, and there were 3 officers that were in my regiment that had been captured earlier. The regimental commander, Colonel Drury, the guy that gave me the pistol, was one of them. The executive officer, they'd gone out to inspect the front lines and got captured. And one of the company commanders, one named Nelson, I think it was Nelson, anyway, I don't remember. So, well, anyway, that we knocked off, we read all those things, and I tried to, as far as I know, not show any recognition. And eventually he said, well, stand up there against the door there. I want to take your picture. I said, oh, okay. And so I'm standing up there in this blanket, and he takes the picture with his nice Leica camera and says, incidentally, let me have your home address, and one of these days this war will be over and you might like this picture. Which is, in retrospect, he was a rather youngish man, and rather an odd thing for him to say, but he said it. Of course, I think that's a dirty German trick to get me to talk. That's what I was thinking. And so I said, no, thank you. It's only name, rank, and serial number. That's it. So he calls in the sergeant, and let's see, and I'm still in this blanket. And let's see, did he give me oh yes, I think he gave me a pair of German breeches, military breeches, and a PFC jacket, German PFC jacket. And 2 guys on a motorcycle and with a sidecar, and these were SS guys. Hats right at a great angle, and and absolutely crazy drivers. And I'm in this motorcycle hanging on for dear life, and we are driving by there. I'm still with. I think I've lost the blanket by then, but I've got this PFC German uniform, and we pull in to a place, and I get taken inside and put in a waiting room of what I think was a corps headquarters, at least a division headquarters, but maybe higher, because colonels all over the place, German that is. But I'm left outside here in the anteroom, the waiting room, and I'm by myself, and nobody's paying any attention to me. And they don't even have a guard on me. In the meantime, there are papers on this table that's next to me, and magazines and odds and ends, so I pick up this paper and start leafing through it, and suddenly I was looking at a map of the Maginot, not the Maginot, the Siegfried Line in our area, with where the pillboxes were, where the machine guns were, and fields of fire. And this is gold. General Patton would kill for this. So I just, and as intrusive as possible, I'm just studying this. I'm going to memorize this, and when I get back, I'll be a big hero. I'll have this information. And so I am memorizing this, and I'm really trying to mental picture, photographic mind. And about this time, suddenly I see this belt buckle in front of me and these boots, and I look up, and there's this German colonel, and he's looking down at me, and he snatches his map, and then takes a couple of steps over this door and starts yelling like mad at everybody, and dozens of people come running.